Film 2021 was a year-long celebration of filmmaking and film-going organised by Bristol Ideas, which used the centenary of the death of the Bristolian moving picture pioneer William Friese-Greene on May the 5th, 1921, as its jumping-off point. Now, as someone who has researched Friese-Greene for decades and is currently involved in a PhD about the man, they asked me to contribute in a variety of ways, including writing various pieces for the Bristol Ideas website and taking part in some discussions. And now here we are, 12 months down the line. They asked me to reflect upon what's happened over the past year and indeed what I've taken away from it. So here are my musings. Well, here I am, in this classic English churchyard. But this is not where William Friese-Greene is buried. No, that's 7 miles west of here, in Highgate Cemetery, where he lies beneath a monument which controversially declares him to be the inventor of cinematography. So why, you might be asking, am I here and not there? Well, 8 months later, and I finally made it. Hair's a little bit longer, wearing the same t-shirt here just for a bit of continuity. Obviously it's been washed in the meantime. So, William Friese-Greene. From a Bristol back street to a monument in Highgate, that's quite a journey. And if I wanted to sound like a TV presenter, I would say this whole year has been quite a journey, but that's actually true. This grave has certainly been the cause of some controversy, especially this phrase here, inventor of cinematography. This monument by his grave states his claim pretty unequivocally. His genius bestowed upon humanity the boon of commercial cinematography, of which he was the first inventor and patentee. It even has the details of the patent that he took out with Mortimer Evans, June 21st, 1889, number 10301. Except they got the number wrong. I suppose one of the things that surprised me most over the past year is that 100 years after William Friese-Greene died, a lot of people don't really think about him anymore, that he can still be such a polarizing figure. And it's still so hard to get beyond a story which is either, oh, he's a great hero, or oh, he was a terrible person. So, for instance, thanks to Bristol Ideas activities in connections with The Observer, ended up having a whole page in there about what was happening and the research that I'd been doing, and the journalist does a wonderful job and, represents fairly well what I said to her, is careful not to exaggerate, and then, of course, a sub-editor slaps on a headline like this, which was precisely what I said was not my point of view. And on the other hand, just as I'm starting my PhD, another early cinema historian who I know well decides that the thing to do now that there's been all this celebration about Friese-Greene is to publish a whole long series of posts making him out to be a terrible person. Is it really so radical to suggest that somebody might be significant and yet not all important? Apparently it is. 1921. William Friese-Greene dies in the middle of a film industry meeting, and everybody goes, who was he? Oh no, he was amazing. Let's give him an absolutely gigantic funeral. Oh, look at that. That's completely nuts, isn't it? I mean, that is really nuts. And then we're going to bury him in Highgate, and we're going to put up a monument, and we're going to call him the inventor of cinematography. That'd be great. 1948. A journalist who saw that funeral procession as a young woman decides to put together a book about it called Friese-Greene, Close-Up of an Inventor. And it's all quite romantic, and look at his little face, and look at her little face, and oh, God. 1951. It's the Festival of Britain. The book is made into a film called The Magic Box. Oh, and now we've got fictional Friese-Greene. dear. Even though the film doesn't say that he was the inventor of cinematography, certain film historians seem to be suffering from auditory and visual hallucinations and are absolutely sure that it did. 1955. It's the centenary of Friese-Greene's birth, and the Kodak Museum decides to go on the attack, most notably with this article by Brian Coe entitled The Truth About Friese-Greene. The truth, and the truth was that he was a bit of an idiot that didn't understand anything about science, and any good idea that he ever had, he just basically nicked off somebody else, and he had nothing to do with the invention of moving pictures, and we should just stop talking about him. And everybody did. 2021. You want the truth? The truth? You can't handle the truth! A pretty well-known film historian who's certainly been a visitor to Cinema Rediscovered, Ian Christie, recently said in a talk that it's important to remember that film history is also local history. And in a way, that's where it all starts. And investigating the life of William Friese-Greene, what I've discovered is there's a whole web of people from Bristol and Bath and Weston-super-Mare who were very important in his life in a whole variety of ways. And it's been good to focus on that a little bit and see how, to some extent, we do remain where we came from. Certainly one of my favourite moments of the year was during Cinema Rediscovered, where at the last moment we had to scrabble together something online so that Christopher Frayling and Bryony Dixon from the BFI and I could have a conversation about William Friese-Greene. But it was incredibly enjoyable, especially to talk with somebody like Christopher Frayling, who can put the story in its cultural context and who was around when the Festival of Britain was happening and remembers how things were viewed then and how we might view them now.
First, which is an incredibly careful way of saying we're not actually claiming that he was the first, but he was the first to patent it in '89, which I think is historically true. And so Eric Ambler, you know, the film's been accused of flag waving, but that's really a very cautious thing to say about your hero, I think. It's a very touching little scene.
For me, this book is one of the glories of this year. Something to be left behind, well, as a record and more of a permanent contribution. And I like the fact that it ties this guy, this Victorian Edwardian inventor, to film going, to Bristol, to filmmaking. And as somebody who spent decades in Bristol working on all sorts of projects and making films, I really enjoy being able to talk about that and connect it a little bit with Friese-Greene for the Festival of the Future City. The PhD that I'm now deeply engaged in every single day is about the earlier part of William Friese-Greene's life of invention. But it's been really, really nice to write things for the Bristol Ideas page about various other aspects of his life and him as a person. Particularly, I've been wanting to do something about his attitude towards women and how he related to them and what the times were like. And those posts seem to have got quite a lot of interest. And also to write about things that may be sometimes a bit more light-hearted, or, for instance, to write about Robert Donat's performance as William Friese-Greene in The Magic Box, which is probably the closest any of us will get to actually meeting the guy. Indeed, such is the effect that he had on me, Robert Donat, that I felt the urge to recreate quite a well-known scene in the confines of a corner of my living room.
You know, it's a quite extraordinary feeling. Something you've been wondering about and dreaming about for 15 years. And then, all of a sudden, it's there. It's in your hands. With a life of its own.
You must be a very happy man, Mr. Friese-Greene.
Is she dark or is she fair? Auburn locks and golden hair, hazel eyes or sweetest blue, laughing eyes or grave and true. If you would see her beauty rare, to his studio repair, and there her photo may be seen, charmingly taken by Friese-Greene.
It's a bit disturbing, really, to think about the fact that it was almost 30 years ago now that Andrew Kelly and I first had a discussion about doing something about William Friese-Greene in Bristol. But in a funny way, I'm glad it's turned out this way, even with all the problems that COVID brought and all of that, because it sort of forced us all to be more flexible, and as a result, in a way, meant you could actually talk to a wider audience, people all around the world, instead of just people in one room. And also, a lot of thinking about society has gone on in that time, and a lot of our priorities have changed, and we certainly feel a long way away from, we need to celebrate somebody as a British hero, or even necessarily as a Bristol hero. I think what you can be proud of is that Bristol, which is a pretty unconventional city, managed to create somebody like him who would come from such a background. I mean, here we are in Highgate with this monument to this man who came from a city where most famously, recently, they've been tearing monuments down. But at the end of the day, it's not really about monuments and whether you've got them or whether you haven't. It's about how you lived your life. Anyway, I'm getting very philosophical. I have a lot more to say about all this, but you might have to be patient and wait 3 years for that. I might say something in the meantime. Anyway, I'm incredibly glad and genuinely so proud that we were finally able to do something, and it has, in all honesty, exceeded my wildest expectations. That's no word of a lie. So thank you to everybody at Bristol Ideas and at the Watershed and just everybody who's participated in this.